What's going on, everyone? This is Christian media training. What is Christian media training? This is training for how Christians ought to answer questions in the mainstream media. Now, you may say, why do we need Christian media training? The answer is very simple. It's because when someone sticks a mic in front of your face and asks you a question that you're not prepared for, you might say something silly or something that can be construed the wrong way. So Christian media training is actually pretty useful. Now, I played basketball in college, and we had the benefit of having media training. And let me tell you a quick story about why this was so important. We set up a fake press conference, and my coaches asked me a question, how do you think we're going to be this year? And I immediately went to say, well, I think our guards are going to be really good, but our big man, I'm not so sure about. Then when I realized I had just thrown my teammates under the bus, I realized that's probably not a good thing to do. That's not going to play well in the locker room. So I thought that we could use a little Christian media training. We're actually going to start doing this with the big homie Lecrae. Now, listen, I know that Lecrae is a lightning rod for controversy. And I want to address two groups when it comes to addressing all things Lecrae. First, let me address the hypercritical. Okay, there are people that want us to revoke Lecrae's Christian card. He's not a believer, he's not saved, he's apostate. Come on, let's be serious, okay? It's not that serious. Yes, there are some problematic ideas that I think he has, but the hypercritical ones, please, just simmer down. The other group I want to address are the fanboys. Fanboys are the exact opposite of the hypercritical. Basically, Lecrae can do no wrong. He might as well be Jesus himself, or anybody that's reached records for that matter. Everything they do is right. And anybody that says anything about Lecrae and reached records, they just Pharisaic and just want to stir up controversy and division amongst the brethren. Fanboys, simmer down. You are wrong. Just take a chill pill and just listen to what I have to say. Now, we're going to look at 3 clips that I think Lecrae could have definitely used my Christian media training on. These 3 clips, if viewed in isolation, they're actually not that big a deal. But when you put them all together, you see a very clear pattern. It's basically Lecrae trying a little too hard to be accepted. In other words, it seems to me that he's hyper-focused on trying to show that he's one of them, quote unquote, that he doesn't realize that he's distancing himself from his teammates. Kind of like how I threw my teammates under the bus when I did that fake press conference. Good thing it wasn't a real press conference because I would have been in trouble. Let's look at the first clip.
Historically, I've been more adamant, you know what I mean? And have created songs that were like unadulteratedly explicit in terms of the message. And so I think that's where a lot of the stigmas come from. But, you know, people mature and they learn their sound, they learn their lane. And that's really what I've done, is learn my sound and my lane. And so, you know, what you've gotten with my mixtape Church Clothes, what you've gotten with the album Gravity is who I am.
Now, did this cat just say that the Christian rap label is a stigma? I mean, a stigma? I mean, there's not a more negative connotation that you can imply other than to say a stigma. So this is really violation number 1 in separating yourself from your teammates. Now, notice Lecrae says in the clip that he matured, and that's why his message of the gospel is less specific or less explicit. But doesn't the converse imply that those who are immature still have a more explicitly Christian message? You may think this is a really small detail, but coupled with his other statements and other interviews, we see a clear pattern of him trying to distance himself, not just from the Christian rap label, but from other Christian rappers, which I think is problematic.
You know, definitely I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, J. Cole. I'm looking forward to seeing Justin Timberlake do his thing as well. And so, you know, it's so much great music that's going to be displayed tonight.
You actually listen to Justin Timberlake and J. Cole and all that stuff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. See, at the end of the day, for me, it's about good music, you know. And so whether or not we're talking about the same things or we're interested, you know, it's like a single person listening to a love song. It doesn't make you not like the love song anymore just because you don't have anybody.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see J. Cole. I can't wait to see Justin Timberlake. And the interviewer almost sounds surprised when he says that. She goes, you really listen to J. Cole and Justin Timberlake? And Lecrae's like, oh, yeah, of course I listen to J. Cole and Justin Timberlake. Why is this a problem? There again, keep in mind the theme here that I've uncovered. He really wants to show that he's one of them. As much one of them as he is one of us, if I could say it that way. And in so doing, he kind of gives them kind of like a broad compliment like, ooh, yeah, I just love J. Cole and Justin Timberlake. But I think if you were to press Lecrae and ask him, well, do you like everything about their music? I think he would clearly say, well, no, I don't like everything about their music. But therein lies the danger of just giving unilateral praise to some of these artists. Let me try to unpack this by giving you a little tip that my wife gave me some time ago about how you address, or how I should address women if I'm going to give them a compliment. She said to me, it's always better to say to a woman, if her hair looks nice, to say that her hair looks nice, instead of saying, you look nice, or you look really good today. The reason why that's important is because when you say your hair looks nice, then they can't take it any other way than other than your hair looks nice. But if you say you look really nice today, maybe they think you're talking about something that maybe you're not talking about. And maybe that can be construed as maybe a pass at them or being a little flirty. Now, is this like an ironclad rule? Well, no, not in general, but it's wise to really think about how you compliment a woman if you're a married man. And I always remember that. So he gives them almost this wholesale endorsement. It's just like, oh yeah, I listen to J. Cole, I listen to Justin Timberlake. And the question must be asked, if you're a Lecrae fan, should you be listening to Justin Timberlake and J. Cole? Is this sort of endorsement, should we take it to the level of saying, everyone, it's cool if you listen to J. Cole and Justin Timberlake, their music is perfectly okay. I think a lot of parents would have a problem with that. I know personally I would have a problem with that. I don't let my daughter listen to J. Cole. I definitely would not let my daughter listen to Justin Timberlake. So why this wholesale endorsement? There again, it's a part of that pattern. What he could have said was, I think Justin Timberlake is an amazing musician. That is very specific, and it can't be construed as any other way. And besides the fact, it's true. Justin Timberlake is an amazing musician. But to say, oh, I'm so excited, and start gushing over Justin Timberlake makes it seem like he's endorsing the elements of his music that clearly any Christian would have a problem with. There again, he could have said about J. Cole, I think J. Cole is an amazing lyricist. That's very different from saying, oh, I can't wait to see J. Cole perform. I listen to J. Cole all the time. He's awesome. Those are not the same thing. So, Christian in the media, if you got to give somebody a compliment, be very specific.
Do you drink when you go out?
Well, you know what I'm saying? I look at it like this. I don't think there's anything, I don't call drinking a sin or nothing like that. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you choose to do, you do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm on my weightlifting, I'm on my exercising and keeping my body clean. So, you know, that's not my typical thing, but you know what I'm saying? Hey, I ain't got nothing against you if you want to throw one back.
Well, I'm just talking about you. I ain't talking about me. I'm going to throw it back.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Here Lecrae is on Sway in the Morning. And Sway asked him a very simple question. Do you drink? Now, after fumbling around a little bit, he finally answers the question. Well, not really, but it's okay if you want to throw one back. I thought this was an odd way to answer the question because that wasn't the question. Of course, Sway wasn't asking him, can I throw one back? Sway actually makes that pretty clear when he actually says that. Hey, I know I can throw him back. I'm going to throw him back. I'm asking about you. Why would you give a wholesale endorsement to drinking as if all of it's okay? Obviously, there's a difference between having a glass of wine when you're in the comfort of your own home or having an alcoholic beverage or maybe two at the most when you're out amongst friends. That's very different from throwing back shots at Ciroc in the club. So why would Lecrae, again, endorse drinking in general without any qualification? I think because he's trying a little too hard to say, hey, I'm one of you. I'm a normal guy. Hey, we as Christians, we don't need to do that. We're not one of them. We're not normal. We aren't. The Bible says we are a peculiar people. We need to get comfortable with that idea. And if people are uncomfortable with that, then let them deal with it. There are also other ways of helping them understand that we are, in fact, human. We do bleed. We're not like superhuman, but we are different, and we need to be cool with that. A simple way to answer the question is, no, I don't drink. Next question. I mean, what's wrong with that? No, I don't drink. Or saying, you know what? It's okay to drink, but, you know, getting drunk obviously is across the line. That's a part of my values as a Christian, so I don't do that. Next question. So there again, you take all three of these and put them together and they show a pattern. I've matured. That's why I don't talk about Jesus so much. Then sweeping with a broad brush and saying, yeah, it's okay if you throw them back. Of course, if you were to press Lecrae about whether he thinks all drinking is okay, of course he would say no. But that's certainly not the impression he gave on this video. Then wholesale endorsements of Justin Timberlake and J. Cole. Now, finally, the cherry on top for all of this is when Sway starts out the interview saying, well, you know, a lot of people in Christian rap outside of the secular rap world, you know, in that space, people don't rap well. And, well, just watch it.
Now, a lot of times when you get into that non-secular sect of music, a lot of times when it comes to hip-hop, a lot of rappers don't rap well. So they could be, they're labeled corny.
Yeah.
And here comes Lecrae.
Thank you.
Marching through the ranks and raising the bar to a whole nother level.
Notice that Lecrae doesn't correct him. He sits there and he just absorbs it like, yeah, I'm like basically one of the only Christian rappers who are any good. So, yeah, here I am to save the day for Christian rap. There again, in isolation, this is not a big deal. But you couple them with the other things that we've seen here, distancing himself from other Christian rappers, being a little too excited about music that most Christians won't approve of, then being a little bit too general when it comes to endorsing drinking. And now he essentially doesn't even correct a guy that basically just dissed the entire genre and saying, you're the only guy that really, or you're one of the few guys that I've seen that can actually do it well. Now, Lecrae has to know full well that there are lots of great Christian MCs. I think of it like, what if somebody dissed your family members or dissed the people that you're close to? Wouldn't you not defend them? Wouldn't you say, wait a minute, I hear what you're saying there, but that's not actually true. I'm just one of many dudes. Hey, as a matter of fact, I'm not even the best one. There's a lot of cats that I look up to and I'm like, if you heard this cat, you'll know that I'm just one of many. But no, he kind of sits there and kind of says, oh, I guess you're kind of right about that. Was that what he was really thinking in his mind? I doubt it, but you know what? Sometimes silence speaks volumes. And here's the thing that we got to keep in mind with all this. This is not about what you meant to say. This is about what you said and how it can be perceived. And that's why, people, this is media training. Now, let's move on to the big homie Andy Mineo. And a good segue, because Andy Mineo actually, in a quote-unquote relatable moment, as you'll see in the clip, he basically disses the Christian rap genre and says, for the most part, it's been corny. And then he takes to Rapzilla sometime later to essentially apologize for the statement.
If you hear Christian and rapper, you may immediately write it off. And so I was almost sympathizing by saying, listen, I get it. You know what I'm saying? If your understanding of it is that it's whack, I understand it. I think some of it in the past has been like that too. For y'all, that seems like such an absurd comment because you in and around it and among it, and there's tons of incredible artists. You know, I could run down a huge list of artists that are amazing.
He even admits to knowing that Christian rap isn't actually corny for the most part, that that's not an accurate statement. But he doesn't exactly take back his words. It's kind of a pseudo apology, kind of like, not that I wish I didn't say it, I just wish I didn't say it that way. All I need to do is refer back to my initial media training, when I threw my teammates under the bus. Now I got to give Andy Mineo the benefit of the doubt and said, hey, if that would have been me, I might have said something like that. Everybody has a bad day. But this is a little bit peculiar given Lecrae's actions, who is essentially his mentor and his boss. Don't you see a pattern here? I don't think it's a coincidence. There again, we see him throwing his people under the bus and standing on the heads of Christians to make himself taller. That's not a good look. So all you fanboys out there that are always saying, y'all just hating on Lecrae and Andy Mineo, y'all just trying to be Pharisees. You need to wake up and smell the coffee, friends. We're not making it up. And if you can't see this pattern, then you've got your head in the sand. Now here's the final and most, I think, egregious example of all of these that I've given is Andy Mineo's discourse on Bizzle's response to Same Love. Now this response was puzzling on so many levels, I don't even know where to begin, but I'm going to try to narrow it down so that this video isn't 20 minutes long.
I think it's always a difficult thing to address very weighty and deeply pressing issues that people have on a 3-minute rap song. I have to think through those things in a way that says, you know, is this the time and the place to be able to unpack everything that I believe, you know, in my personal beliefs, in my music, and is it going to be helpful for people? At the end of the day, I want to create music that's going to be helpful for people. It's going to uplift them. It's going to point them in a direction.
but my music is not in any way going to be able to sit down with somebody and have a conversation. Right. It's one directional, and so I think addressing topics like that on rap records might not be the best place.
Here's what's so puzzling about this. He certainly has the prerogative to say, I don't think I would address all my beliefs in a 3-minute song, right? But you got to be an equal opportunity offender. Why doesn't he say that Macklemore shouldn't have addressed it in a 3-minute song? Why is Bizzle's version of the song the only one that's out of bounds? I don't get it. You understand naturally why Christians are going to have a problem with this. If you're going to diss Bizzle's song, then diss Macklemore's song. At least you're being an equal opportunity offender. But it's always peculiar to me how whenever they're in the media, that Christians are usually the ones getting the short end of the stick, or the ones being made to feel uncomfortable, or the ones feeling, did he just diss me? And this is again the issue. We see a clear pattern of trying to ingratiate themselves with those in the mainstream and with mainstream media, many times at the expense of the body. And this is the problem. Unless you think that this is just some gripe that some sour grape sucking hater of all things Reach Records opinion, then let's look at the big homie Fanatic, who is an industry veteran, one of the original dope MCs in the Christian genre, and let's look at what he had to say about some of the things that have been transpiring about Reach Records and the media. I think he gives an excellent 5-step discourse, some very, very practical steps on how to avoid stepping on the heads of your brethren. He essentially formulates 5 values that they can adopt that will help them avoid this in the future. I'd like to share them with you now. Value number 1, he says, like Moses, if it comes down to a choice of being accepted in Pharaoh's house or identifying with the despised people of God, always choose the latter. This seems to me like common sense, okay? You want to identify with us even if you think you're going to take an L for it. You don't distance yourself from those who you should most readily identify with. That's not going to play well in the locker room. Just remember that. Number 2, like Mordecai told Esther, always remember that your elevation is not for your benefit alone, but for the sake of God's name and the good of God's people. You know, if Reach Records, if Lecrae and Andy Mineo, if they're really concerned about penetrating the mainstream and actually being a more effective witness, then they have to know that they can't do it alone. They have to know that they can't break through and leave the rest of the brethren behind. If they're going to be the tip of the spear, they can't come back after they penetrate and close the hole up so that everybody looks at us like, well, Lecrae and Andy Mineo are Christians, but they ain't like those Christians. Come on, fam, you got to know better. Number 3, instead of detaching yourself from and dishonoring, choose to value and honor the history that paved the way for you, as well as the other dedicated and talented laborers in that field. Like I said, when Sway started to say, well, Christian rappers generally can't rap well, a good opportunity to defend that would have said, I don't know what you've been listening to, bro, but I know about 10, 15 dope MCs that's just as good as me. I don't know what you've been listening to. Number 4, and I think this is excellent. Don't let the risk of losing future moments to represent keep you from maximizing the current moment. God has given you the current moment, and you don't know that he will give you the future one. This is huge. They have the moment right now, but who knows if you'll get another one? You assume that you have more opportunities to represent once they like you, but who says you're going to get more opportunities? And right now you have the opportunity to maximize and elevate the view of Christians in the music industry, and instead of taking the time to separate yourself from us, here's an opportunity for all of us to have more of an impact on the industry. You know, one thing I always said to people is think about from a marketing standpoint. Think about companies like Hyundai and companies like Kia, who when they first started making automobiles, because they were new at making automobiles, they weren't very good at it. But I think after a while, they started to learn some of the industry practices. They started to get better at it. And those companies have essentially really turned their image around. I don't think anyone would be ashamed to be driving, unless you're like one of those snobby people, like a Kia Optima or a Hyundai Sonata. These vehicles have come a long way, and these companies are actually starting to make luxury vehicles now. Now, they didn't say, well, our brand is so shot that we can't use it anymore. We got to try to distance ourselves from the old brand. No, what they did was they changed the perception of the brand while keeping it the same. And they said, we're not just going to say, well, we got to start a whole new name, even though it's the same manufacturers. We're going to say, yes, we are Hyundai. Yes, we are Kia. We're just going to make better cars. And then when we have those examples, we're going to show them to people. And so they were dedicated to changing their image, not abandoning the brand. Don't leave us behind. Be dedicated to changing the perception. Number 5, don't allow people to confuse the hope that you offer with the baseless hope that many love to cling to. The world's hope is substanceless, while our faith is the substance of what we hope for. This is so huge because this gets into the whole positivity and the removing of all the special revelations from the music. I had the opportunity recently to do a retreat for youth workers, and the speaker said something that really stuck with me. He said, we have to take it upon ourselves to modify the behavior of the people we minister to in a way that is uniquely Christian. What does that mean? That means that there's lots of ways where we can change people's behavior and change people's way of thinking, but it's not uniquely Christian. For example, the military has a good way to figuring out how to get their people to act a certain way. Even false religions like Mormons, they have their kids go away on mission trips for 2 years as soon as they turn 18. What a wonderful idea, right? But it's still not the gospel. So I have a problem, I think, with some of these tactics because they want to say, well, we don't want to be so specific with the gospel, right? But the gospel is the only thing that makes people change in a uniquely Christian way. Not like, hey, we need to clean up our music, or hey, we need more positive music, or we need to disrespect our women less, or we need to talk about good things more. Those things are interesting, but they're not uniquely Christian. I struggle with why we're so determined to forward these positivity type agendas and not an actual Christian or Christ-centered agenda. Finally, just so you don't think that this is simply beat up on Reach Records Day, I have one more example, and it's your boy Mali Music. Now, Mali Music said one of the most puzzling things in an interview that I think I've ever heard. They asked him who was his celebrity crush. Well, let him say it. I just have one thing to say about that. Huh? Even one of the people who made a comment on the YouTube video said, after he said that, that makes me look at him differently. How can it not? Yes, Rihanna is an attractive woman. But go back to the earlier thing when I told you about how my wife warned me about how to compliment women. This is something he could have really benefited from. Okay. Rihanna, I don't think fits the description of a godly woman. Mali, come on, bro. And you like the fact that she's spiritual? Maybe that was for the benefit of the person interviewing you, where you wanted to say, hey, I'm just like you guys. I like all the same stuff y'all like, which doesn't really bode well for your base. Listen, the thing you got to know is that Christians are still your base. No matter how you want to present yourself to the mainstream media, Christians are your base. So, you got to know that, you got to acknowledge that, and you got to act accordingly. A godly man should essentially have more to his list of attractive features, more than just ability and looks and artistry. Character has got to play a lot into that, and godliness has got to be something that you find attractive. And if godliness is something you find attractive, can't see how you could really find that in Rihanna. Sorry. Now, this final comment is really puzzling when asked, well, I'll let you see the question.
You mentioned you were going a little more secular with the music. We got some feedback from some of your fans. They were a little skeptical about your new direction and leaving gospel behind. I guess, how would you respond to them and let them know that you're still making positive, uplifting music?
Well, I think the most important thing that I had to learn is that I didn't have to respond at all. It was never a situation that I was indebted or owed anybody anything. The fact that I was sharing my music was a gift. Even though it was a situation where I viewed it as servitude and loyalty and all this stuff like that, I didn't have to explain anything. But out of love, it was a situation where I wanted it to be clear.
Oh, okay, wait. So this dude, this dude actually said he doesn't owe anybody an explanation, and his music is a gift. You know, honestly, bro, that kind of smacks of something that maybe like your mom told you to say, or maybe you heard her say. Of course, your mom's going to think you're God's gift to the world because you're God's gift to her. But you should have a little bit more humility when you're dealing with your fans. You know, the people that actually paid money. You know, the people that actually put money in your pocket. Yes, you do owe them an explanation if what you're doing can be perceived as something that is taking you away from what caused them to be a fan of yours in the first place. Don't be so arrogant, bro. Come on. You got to know better than that. Even if you're thinking it, that's not something you say. You got to have a little bit more tact than that. When in fact, you're doing something that is perceived to be taking you away from what your core is. Now, if you don't get that, I don't know what else to say. But I'll just say to you, just like every business should understand this. The customer is the boss. Everybody's got a boss, right? And the customer is the boss. And for you to say that you don't owe your customers any explanation is pretty naive. The Bible does say, shun the very appearance of evil. If you're doing something that can be perceived as evil, then yes, you owe people an explanation. So, just for the sake of clarity, let's take a moment to recap. Okay? When it comes to dealing with the media, it's not about what you're thinking, it's about what you're saying and how that is perceived. You have to think about how both crowds, how both audiences are going to hear your explanations and your answers, both the Christians and those in the mainstream. And Christians shouldn't always be the ones getting the short end of the stick when it comes to being insulted or feel like they're being set aside or feel like their intelligence is being undermined or feeling like their opinions don't matter. Hey, listen, if you're going to say that you just want to be the person God wants you to be and you don't really care about people's opinions, then you should be an equal opportunity offender. When you do interviews with these mainstream outlets, sometimes they should be the ones walking away feeling some kind of way about something you said. Not always believers. It seems like when these people do these interviews, it's always believers whose thoughts and feelings about and opinions of them are the opinions that don't matter. And that should not be. This has been Media Training with the big homie T1. God bless, and I'm out.